There we go. Thank you all for joining. We're starting with the second session today with Václav from Waku. Hopefully he'll touch a little bit as well on status and logos. Lots of interesting developments and stuff that you're contributing on. So I'm not going to take too much of your time and just hand it over to you. Please take it away.
Thank you. I'll figure out how to share my screen. Just let me. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay. I never used Discord for these things.
There should be some buttons in the bottom of the stage.
Yep, we got it. Go live. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So you probably don't see much, so I'm going to just advance my slides. So my name is Václav and I work at Waku, and we'll talk about Web3 communication and what that means. And also I'll try to tell you and help you with the question of how to contribute to Waku. All the images, since AI has been pointed out, are generated through Midjourney, so enjoy. So first of all, I would like to set some context for things. So we'll be talking about communication or messaging. Now, what does messaging mean? The problem of messaging is that it is a very overloaded term, especially if you're coming from Web 2, because I am coming from Web 2 originally, and I've spent a lot of time with distributed systems and architect. And when you say messaging, there are many different things, but chat is the last one that comes to mind. It will always be message queues, message buses, distributed queues, all these things, right? So we have different kinds of messaging and communication, and it can be human to human. So like here on Discord, we are chatting, we are talking, whatever. It can be human to machines, so we are instructing machines to do something. It can be machines to machines. If you have microservice architecture, or if you have front end and back end, there is messaging and communication happening there as well. Then also we have two kinds of messaging or communication, which can be centralized and decentralized, where we probably know that because we are in a Web3 space, but let's just mention it. If it's centralized, there is a central server or multiple of those, but they are controlled by a single entity, where all the messages come through those centrally controlled servers, right? And we don't want that in Web3, because we do not believe that is the best way to move forward, and the centralization and the power of centralization is not good for ordinary humans. That's why we look into decentralization. We've been looking into that with all the blockchains and all the other services around Web3, DeFi and all these things, where we want to make sure that anyone can contribute to that network of nodes running a service, but then also that there is no power in the world that can shut off the whole network or render it unusable, right? They can shut off part of the network because they have control over some part of the world global network called internet, but they can't shut it all, right? And if we have enough privacy and censorship-resistant, and we have a peer-to-peer network, we may be able to avoid the shutting down completely. Now, I am coming from Waku, which is part of Logos. Logos has been kind of spun off away from Status, so I'll cover all these three. I'll try to quickly cover all these three. So Status is a pretty old company, given how Web3 moves quickly. They did an ICO in I think 2016 or 17, and since then they've been, or even before that, they've been building Status application, a decentralized, privacy-preserving messaging system, and they leveraged something called Whisper. And you have the trifecta here on the slides that were in the original Ethereum white paper: Whisper for communication, Swarm for storage, and Ethereum for consensus, right? So after a while, trying to use Whisper used proof of work. So if you use it on your phone, the phone would literally melt down. They realized that this is not the way forward, and they need to come up with something else, and they came up with Waku. After some time, they came up with the thought that maybe the current implementation of Waku is not great, so they came up with Waku v2, which has been moved to Logos, which is where we live right now. Now, what Logos is, it's a project, it's a collective. I forgot to put in a link here, but I'm pretty sure Wesley will be able to post the link in the chat, or I'll add it in the slides later on and share those. But basically, Logos is a collective of people who believe in privacy, censorship-resistant, and that there should be a way to build a parallel system to what we have with our governments and all these things. Not necessarily breaking down the governments or competing with them, but just living next to them. Like Balaji is talking about network states, Logos is talking about network states, maybe from a slightly different angle, but the core concepts are very similar. So Logos focuses on building decentralized infrastructure, and with the coming back to the original Ethereum white paper, whispers from Ethereum in Logos are replaced by Waku, Codex, and Nomos. Waku is the communication as used to be whisper, but there is no real proof of work. I'll explain what that means, but basically the idea is to have a peer-to-peer, decentralized, censorship-resistant, privacy-focused network where people can send messages or machines can send messages without the worry to be linked or censored. Sorry. Now, Codex is a storage protocol or project where basically we have two main focuses in around storage and around Web3 storage, and that's either not being reliable and being partially centralized, which is kind of IPFS. I mean, IPFS itself is very decentralized or very distributed, but the problem is IPFS to work properly will leverage and focus on HTTP gateways, which are centralized. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have RB, which again tells you, hey, upload this for a fee, and it will be there forever. And like you can't be sure that it's going to be the case. I mean, their white paper is convincing, but you don't know. The Codex goes somewhere in the middle. They want to make sure that everything stays there as long as you pay for stuff, but it's decentralized, and ideally there are no HTTP gateways that you need to rely on. Centralized HTTP gateways that you need to rely on. Then the last part is Nomos, which is a new blockchain that Logos is building, and it's probably going to take multiple years before there is any production-ready example. There is a completely new consensus algorithm called Carno, which is very interesting. And instead of like Ethereum being based on time, like a block every 8 minutes, it's also based on events and other things. So I don't understand that almost at all, right? So you need to read the white paper and you need to follow Nomos itself. I don't work in that team, and I can say I don't fully understand it. It's very complex stuff from my point of view. So that's Logos, and now let's get back to Waku. So I mentioned all these buzzwords, privacy preserving and decentralized and censorship resistance and peer-to-peer network. But what it really means is that you want to make sure that sender and recipient cannot be easily linked. That even if you eclipse half of the network or part of the network, the rest of the network will function fine. That you can send any type of message, so generalized messaging is there. And then also that it works not only on massive beefy servers somewhere in the data center, but also on things like mobile phones, laptops, Raspberry Pis in your home, things like that. Waku is production ready, so we are being used by these companies, at least these companies, and a bunch of more are developing on top of us. That you see on the slide. So Status is pretty obvious since Waku came from Status originally. Railgun, it's a privacy. It's a DeFi project for privacy transactions, and they use Waku to relay the messages in their network. XMTP is built on top of Waku, integrated into the Coinbase wallet, so you could say that Coinbase is using Waku. Though the part where they use Waku is closed source, and we're trying to convince them to open source it. And the graph, they have something called GraphCast, where they basically allow nodes to communicate and exchange information on their decentralized network of indexers, and they use Waku for that communication. So what Waku is technically then, it is based on lit peer-to-peer. We did not reinvent the peer-to-peer networking stack. It is fully based on lit peer-to-peer. project. So if you're familiar with that, it will be very easy for you to jump on Waku. It uses RLN for rate limiting. RLN actually is a collaboration between PSE, which we just heard a presentation from, and VAC, which is Logos deep research team, VAC peer-to-peer. And they did it together, and it's a zero knowledge based technique to allow rate limiting in decentralized peer-to-peer networks. We focus also, apart from on the backend service, we focus on resource-restricted devices. So we have a JavaScript client for browsers. We have a Golang client, which can be easily integrated into mobile applications and things like that. And then we have some special protocols that allow you to not be a full participant in the network, in the relay, kind of the backbone protocol, and allow you to use Waku on lower power devices. We also have a protocol for something we call short-term memory in the network, because all the messages are ephemeral. Like you send a message, it bubbles through the network of the nodes. The message is relayed to all the nodes, and then it's kind of forgotten unless someone remembers it for some time. So there is a store protocol which allows you to query the network, and depending on how long the store nodes will want to store the message, that will be the memory of the network, kind of. So you can, if you have a resource-restricted device like your phone, and you connect after 5 minutes of being disconnected to preserve battery, you can query the missing messages. Waku has clients in these 3 languages: Nim, JavaScript, and Golang. Nim, to me, is a very obscure language. I've never heard about it before joining Waku. So if you are a Nim contributor, I definitely recommend checking out our Waku client, because you will have a lot of fun looking into that and probably telling us how to do it better, or what to improve, and things like that. JavaScript is mostly targeting browsers, but it also should work in Node.js. And then Golang is kind of for mobile devices or integrations into other systems. If you go to GitHub to waku-org, you'll see all the repos we have. There is bunch of examples. There are the client repos and other things, so you can definitely go there and check for the issues, contribute there. We will be happy to help. But if you want to know a specific issues that you could look at, I've picked some that are labeled good first issue, and also when I read them, I was like, yes, even without knowledge of those clients or the code, I should be able to, if I know the language, should be able to figure out how to contribute there. So in NimWaku client, we do have this inconsistent naming of flags compared to GoWaku, and we want to make sure that those two are the same. So that should be pretty simple. There is a list of flags for both clients, and you can just make sure that they are named the same way and they are used the same way. We also have some examples in the repo. One of those is chat2 example, and this issue basically talks about how you could display all the peer-to-peer peers for your running chat2 example, and it should be very easy to add this list of peers. Even in Nim and for this chat example. Another thing that has been requested by our infrastructure team, so it's very important, is every single node has to have a key, like a private key, and it's generated if it's not provided, but you can provide it through a parameter, or you can provide it through environment variables, but they would also like to have it provided in a file. So that should be pretty easy to implement, very straightforward, and it would help immensely. Our infrastructure team, they will love it for you, and they do not love many people. For Golang, some new metrics, port shift flag, that should be pretty easy. Also, like just make sure that if you are starting and using default ports, all the ports are shifted by number n, so that should be easy. And then JS Waku has did not have that many, but verbose naming, so we have some type naming that is not very obvious what the type actually means. So we'll look at good practices and improve that. There is some deprecation issue of a function, so it should be very easy to implement. It's just about noting that it's deprecated and then changing README and things like that. It's not even coding, so even if you are not a developer, you can take a look at that. And then another issue for the transports, where we do not want unsecured WebSockets to be used, so there could be a limitation done in code. And then I also linked, we do have a blog repo, a website repo, where we need a change. It should be very easy if you are not a coder and you want to contribute, to change some links in the menu. And then also a docs repo, where obviously if you just try to use Waku or read the docs and something is not clear, you can clarify it. That would be also awesome if you can contribute there. I've ran through this pretty quickly, honestly. So I'll check. This is we mostly hang out at Discord. So it would be awesome if you want to contribute. Just hop there. Feel free to ask there, like what to contribute to as a first issue, or just ask other questions. We do have Twitter as well, so there is a link to Twitter, and we post regularly. And we started hosting community calls, community spaces. First one was actually last week, so next one will be probably in 2 weeks or in a month, depending. But Logos has a space on Wednesday actually with Hopper Network. That's going to be interesting. And then also this link got posted in the chat. It's for the questions. I'm actually going to take a look at there if we do have any questions. We do have some answers for a thing. What does Waku stand for? That's a very good question. I've been actually asked that on the community space. So Waku is a Japanese word related to something like a well or a stream of water, and it means something like to run forward, to excitedly jump forward, or something like that. There is also, I think it's a show, and it's kind of a term that you would use in Japan, which says waku waku, and that's meaning that you are very excited for something. So that's what it stands for. Let me check the polls, which is reload just in case my Waku connection died or something in the browser tab. This Q&A platform, I've built it when I started looking into JS Waku as a kind of example for how we could use Waku. So we do have people that are Web 2 and Web 3, and we have all just voted are full stack developers. So you will definitely see some good repos in Waku and status where you can contribute. Yeah, I don't think there were any other questions in the chat, but if there are any questions, I see that there are not that many people left, but if you do have questions, I'm happy to answer. Or Wesley, if you do have anything that you would like to hear from me.
Yeah, thank you so much. There was one question, but I think it was more related to Arweave when you were comparing the storage later.
Okay.
That Arweave is more harder to scale. Yeah. Large. Not sure if it's something you're familiar with, but
no, I definitely. I mean, isn't AR token also particularly hard to get now for large scale stuff? I'm not sure. Like, I've never actually owned Arweave, so I never tried to buy it. Well, yeah, because I used Bundler. I think it has a different name now, but it was a project on top of Arweave that allowed you to use like an aggregation network on top of Arweave, and you could pay in various other. You could pay in various other tokens. So I used that. I never used Arweave directly, so I can't answer that question. I'm not sure why it's showing screen share when I see this question. Which of the status projects is the easiest to start contributing to? New and don't know much about Waku except this workshop. Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing. That's weird. But I think depending on what language do you like, I'll try to force reload this. Depending on which language do you like, I think that's how I would target the repo that you can contribute to. If you want to try something like NIM, or you know NIM, then Waku would be great to contribute for you. There are other projects and many libraries that use NIM in status. So it would be awesome if it could be a good start to like contribute to these projects and even land a job in status or logos. For others, like if you know JavaScript, then take a look at JS Waku. There are also examples, like if you want to contribute an example built on top of Waku, just try it out and you can contribute there. We also have awesome -Waku repo where you can get inspiration, and there are some hackathon projects built there. So you can base your example that you can contribute to examples repo based on that. And if you know Golang, then obviously Go Waku. But then there is also Status Go. The problem with contributing to Status directly, and I'll be honest, I didn't check status repos for the good first issues label, but the problem with that is that it's very complex from my point of view, and they've been rushing the implementation, and I am not 100% sure how well structured the code is at this point. It probably is good enough for you to contribute there, but it's gonna definitely take some time to get to know the repos, get to know the dependencies and all these things. Waku is a bit easier, I think, from that perspective. If you just go to the repo, you try to run the tests, you try to check that. Also, tests might be a good way to contribute. Like if you understand the language and then you see how the tests work, you can add more tests. We do have some QA people now who are writing tests as their job, and it's not just part of the development process for the developers. So more tests are coming, but still there are never enough tests. I have also seen, I think in JS Waku there was some like set up this code coverage tool, something like that. So that could be also interesting if you have knowledge around GitHub workflows and things like that. We do use GitHub workflows and GitHub Actions a lot, so reviewing that and checking if there is anything that you could improve or recommendations to change, all are absolutely appreciated. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And also for the brief history lesson on the development of Ethereum, I guess. I don't think many here might be familiar with that. Because as you said, Waku or Whisper back in the day has always been part of the original vision of Ethereum. Ethereum being the compute layer, Swarm the storage layer, and Whisper as the messaging layer. It's exciting to see that this is all getting back together as part of Logos and building the tools and the stack for nation states. What's really interesting is that, all of the projects that you guys have built are basically never compromised on the original cypherpunk ideals of decentralized and censorship-resistant peer-to-peer infrastructure. So it's really exciting to see those things coming alive and making an impact now. Thank you.
Yeah. So last comment on that. So Swarm is still existing and being developed. So if you want to look at another original project from the white paper apart from Ethereum, you can take a look at Swarm. Whisper has not been developed for ages now. And I want to just mention this blog post. If you search for Vitalik and Waku, you will find a link to that. Vitalik Buterin recently mentioned Waku in some of his, I think, blog posts, and then some question at a conference. We're basically mentioning that Waku is actually true, as you said, Wesley, true to the original cypherpunk promises of Ethereum. And we are very lucky that our leadership is never like willing to compromise on these things. And it's great because Waku and Logos attract these kind of people that do not want to compromise. We do have Chair in the audience here as well, who is our project and program manager, for helping us to hurt the developers of Waku, which is awesome and tough job. And he is one of those people that like I will never compromise on privacy and all these things. So it's great. Like if you have that in you, that you want to build this cypherpunk future for yourself and your friends, and looking at Waku, looking at Logos, potentially joining, because we do have open positions, is definitely the way to go, and we would love to have you, and love you probably as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I invited Chair here to the stage as well. Not sure if you want to add anything. No pressure. Just putting you on the spot here.
It's that I couldn't do better than Václav, than how Václav just did. But yeah, happy to help. Be a contact point for anyone. Please check out the Waku Oregon GitHub and all of the open bounties. And there's a whole bounties repository if you are eager and hungry to contribute. Just check out what is open now, and certainly we are hiring. Very nice to meet you all.
Great.
Thank you for having me up.
Thank you, both of you.
This project is part of 30 days of Web3.
Yep. Yeah, so if you want to contribute to any of the OG projects, I would say, in this space, this is definitely one of them. Uncompromised on all the original values. Might be a little bit more challenging technically to dive in, but 100% worth it once you start contributing to it. Thanks again, Václav and Chair, for joining here as well. If there are no other questions, I think we're gonna wrap it up for today.